Good afternoon and welcome to the Altadena community meeting. Today we have a few short presentations, then we will answer questions that have been pre-submitted by community members. You can also submit questions in real time using the chat or comment functions on your screen. Helen Chavez, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon and thank you. I'm Helen Chavez Garcia, Communications Director for Supervisor Catherine Barger. Supervisor Barger isn't joining us today. He is traveling back at this moment from Washington, D.C. after having met this past weekend with federal representatives to address disaster relief and support for rebuilding. Supervisor Barger will rejoin this standing 4 p.m. community meeting next Monday. Also, she will host a special community meeting next week exclusively dedicated to the issues renters are facing and homeowners who have houses and structures that survived the wildfire. That meeting will take place on Monday, March 10th from 5 to 6 p.m. Again, I repeat, a special meeting, virtual community meeting dedicated to issues for renters and homeowners with surviving structures next Monday, March 10th from 5 to 6 p.m. That information will be posted on the supervisor's social media pages and also on recovery.lacounty.gov. If you see it, please help us share it. Thank you, Madeline.
Thank you, and we'll transition over to our first presentation from FEMA. I believe Michael Peacock is on to present on behalf.
Hi, actually, this is Hiro Toy. I'm the Deputy Federal Coordinating Officer for FEMA. So I'm reporting you to from the Joint Field Office, where we're working closely together with the State of California daily. One of the questions that we got was regarding how FEMA inspects damages or verifies damages to homes after someone applies for assistance through us. And the question was related to how the State of California conducts damage assessments immediately after an incident takes place. And that data set is called DINS, or damage inspection, and that's conducted by CAL FIRE. And they actually do quite an excellent job in capturing disaster damages with using GIS programs, photographs, and just detailed information. So FEMA actually does not use that data for the purpose of evaluating eligibility for individuals that apply for assistance. That data that's provided by CAL FIRE to us through DINS, it initially gives us information on what the likely extent of the disaster impacts are. But what we do is once someone applies for FEMA assistance and indicates that there was damage to their homes, we will schedule an inspection with them. And sometimes this can be done geospatially. We can look at a satellite image and it'll tell that the home is no longer there, for instance. But what we do in instances where we need to verify the damage is we actually schedule time with the applicant, with the survivor, to actually physically go out to the property and inspect the damages. If anybody incurred damages as a result of this fire, really strongly encourage you to apply for FEMA assistance. That deadline is coming up. It's a week from today. March 10th is the deadline to apply for both FEMA and SBA assistance. And if you indicate that there was damage to your home, we'll reach out to you and schedule a time to do an inspection. So, what would happen is you might get a phone call from a strange phone number. If you're suspicious of it, you can feel free to call back our 800 number to verify that this is indeed a legitimate inspection. To apply for FEMA assistance, you can go to disasterassistance.gov, download the FEMA app, call 1-800-621-3362. That's 1-800-621-3362, or visit us at the one of the disaster recovery centers. We have one in Altadena and we have one at the UCLA West, and we can assist you that way. But again, the way we do verify the damages to homes, it is not using the data that's provided by CAL FIRE, but rather FEMA does our own damage inspections. And that'll be the end of my report.
Thank you. Our next presenter is Sid Tesoro with the Department of Public Works. Sid, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So there's been a couple questions about the right of entries or ROEs. And first off, I want to say thank you for everyone who submitted their ROEs. As of today, we've received over 9,900 ROEs, and our goal is to get over to 13,000 parcels that that have been affected by the fire. So, and of those 9,900, we transmitted over 2,000 ROEs to Army Corps today. So a question has come up about how the process goes. And just quickly, I just want to say that once you've filled out the ROE, be it paper or electronically, that ROE then is initially screened. Those that are complete and are straightforward are reviewed, approved, and submitted to Army Corps as quickly as possible so that they can get into the system for debris removal. Now, those that are incomplete, and it's a pretty straightforward ROE, those then are looked at as a standard or specialized. And what I mean is that standard ones are, you pretty much have all your documents. It's the home ownership is pretty straightforward, and we're just missing a few things. And so we're going to call you or contact you, I should say, email or call you about the ROEs to get your information, and then process that accordingly and get that sent over to Army Corps as well. There are specialized cases. You know, some folks, you may have forgot to choose if you want to keep your foundation or not. The property might be under a trust, an LLC. So for those cases, for those situations, you're gonna get a call or an email from a case manager, and we'll work through you in that process to get your ROE submitted and to U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Now, when I say contact you, it's either going to be in the form of an email or a phone call. So if you get an email that is something like ROE from an ROE at dpw.lacounty.gov, it might appear as LA County Public Works. That's a legit email if it has right of entry request in the subject line. So sometimes you might get a name in front of that and say at dpw.lacounty.gov. That too is a legit email. If you're unsure at any time about it and concerned, you can always call the debris hotline at 844-347-3332, and they can assure you whether it's a legit messaging. We might also call you. We're trying to work with putting caller ID on the calls, but our rhythm is if we can't get a hold of you, we're going to try within the next 48 to 72 hours to see if we can get a hold of you. If not, we'll try to call again and find other means of communicating with you, because we truly want to work with you to get the ROE submitted. One of the other concerns is that, you know, that we weren't going fast enough. I want to let you know that as of today, we added more folks to our ROE team to be case managers to work on those ROE process that are missing some documents. So we're at 2,000 a day. Our goal is to get to 3,000 by this weekend. So with more folks and more eyes working on this, definitely we'll get some more ROEs completed. There's also so you have two options, right? You can either do an ROE or you can choose to opt out of the program, where opt out means you're not going to go through the government run debris removal program. Just remember that if you're opting out, that you have first got to do fill out the opt-out form at recovery.lacounty.gov. You're going to fill out the debris removal of private property, opt out of debris removal of private property. Click on that, fill out the form. Once you've gone through that, then you want to apply for a fire debris removal permit through the county's EPIC LA system. And just want to note some couple things when you apply for the permit. You got to make sure, you know, ideally you want to have Army Corps, US EPA remove the debris, or if not, it's been deferred, it'll be Army Corps. But if you want to get started, just want to make sure that you hire the certified folks, the licensed contractor, to remove that household hazardous materials. And then also a certified asbestos consultant report is needed before you can start removing the fire and ash debris. We are working to get that listing of the class 3 landfills to where the materials can be taken. We should have that finalized shortly. So I'll just stop there for now.
This is Helen on behalf of the supervisor. Just a quick question. I heard you say 2,000 a day. Was that, did you mean to say 2,000 or was that 200 a day?
Oh, so we've transmitted over 2,000 to Army Corps as of today. Our goal is to do 200 transmittal per day to U.S. Army Corps. So.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification. Back to you, Natalie.
Thank you, Helen. Our next presenter is Colonel Avichal with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for some updates on Phase 2. Colonel.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Colonel Sonny Avichal here, Emergency Field Office Commander for the Eaton Fire. As trying to tail off of what Sid said from Public Works, as of today, and this is just for the Eaton fire area, not including Palisades, but we've received 1,294. That was as of 6 a.m. this morning. Rights of entry, and then of those, 1,137 are with our contractor. We currently have 34 debris crews working in Altadena and Pasadena, and then 35 asbestos abatement crews as well. So we are definitely ramping up operations throughout the area. I wanted to just briefly touch on a topic that has gotten some consideration lately, which has been trees and hazardous tree removal program. So first, I'll talk about the eligibility, or what we've been the criteria. And again, this is 3 criteria and for removal, and they must meet all 3 criteria in order for them to be eligible for hazardous tree removal. So first criteria is the tree has a diameter of at least 6 inches or greater, measured 4.5 feet per ground. So ones that are 4.5 feet above the ground. The second criteria is the tree is a distance less than 1.5 times the tree height from a structure or presents a hazard to work crews. So again, if a crew is going to come in and conduct hazardous debris removal, if that tree is within the fire ash footprint, that is, that would be considered hazardous for that crew. And so that would be considered to be removed. And then the third criteria is the tree is dead or expected to die within 5 years as determined by an ISA certified arborist with tree risk assessment qualification, or TRAC qualification. That is the third criteria. And again, all 3 criteria must be present in order for the tree to be considered under the hazardous tree removal policy. Now, we've also been updating our policy to make sure, and our teams to make sure that we are better serving the community. So we have hired more local arborists. We are relooking, and those local arborists are relooking some of the previously marked trees, especially those with the determination of 5 years or less in terms of their longevity. So we are QCing our work. And then as of, I think the media release actually came out today, there is a official tree waiver that has been released, and that can be found on the recovery.lacounty.gov website. Okay, that concludes my update, and looking forward to the rest of the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. And we'll turn now to our final presenter, Clemente Mejia with the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs. Clemente, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my presentation will be about how to vet a contractor and avoiding scams. So when you're at the point where you're ready to begin rebuilding or repairing your property, we strongly encourage homeowners to hire a licensed contractor for various reasons, but the 2 that I would highlight today is, first of all, they are required to have workers' compensation insurance. So if the contractor has employees, they are required to have workers' compensation. And then the second one is a contractor's bond. And it's a $15,000 bond that they must have, and it's designed to protect you against substandard work or if the work does not meet local building codes. So in addition to that, when hiring a licensed contractor, there's certain protections in place for property owners. And also there's also restrictions. So for example, when it's time to hire a contractor cannot charge you more than $1,000 to begin the work, or 10%, whichever is less. But before you get to that part, there's certain things that also need to be in place. And the first one is making sure that they're properly licensed. So when anytime they contact you or have any kind of marketing material, whether it be a business card or a flyer, or even if they have an ad on the yellow pages, they must display their license number. So that gives you the ability to go to the CSLB website and look up their license information. And in there, you're able to see whether or not they have a current bond, if they have workers' compensation insurance, or if they're currently licensed. Sometimes if they don't have one of their two active, then their license may be suspended. And also you can see information about whether or not there are complaints or investigations on a licensed contractor. So regardless of how big or small the project is, we still encourage you to hire a contractor. Sometimes people feel that hiring a handyman or an unlicensed person may save them money, but it could cost you more at the end or in the long run. So how to choose the right contractor. So we encourage people to get at least 3 bids for the work. And obviously the bids are going to be based on the same plans or scope of work. Do not rush to make a decision. Again, this is going to be a process where you're rebuilding your home. And it's just best to take your time and consider the bids that you're receiving. Also, it's not always best to choose the cheapest option. Sometimes that could be a red flag when it comes to someone who's trying to take advantage of the situation or trying to pull some scam. Again, their license information must be on business cards or any other marketing material, so you can take that information and check their license on the CSLB website. You could also use sources to check reviews. So Yelp is a good source. There's Angie.com or things like Nextdoor. So you could use those to see if there's any kind of reviews for contractors. And also you want to ask or consider someone that has experience dealing with fire damage. Anytime you do negotiate or contract with someone, you want to make sure you get everything in writing. California law does require a written contract for jobs over $500. Next slide, please. So when you do hire and sign a home improvement contract, the next phase is paying the contractor. So again, initially, to start the work, there's a down payment should not exceed $1,000 or 10%, whichever is less. Now, what we've seen in the past is sometimes contractors will use scare tactics, or they'll say that they could finish the project a lot faster if you could pay it all up front or pay it sooner. And then a lot of times, homeowners are left with incomplete work or sometimes substandard work. So, try to avoid these tactics. You can set up a payment schedule. So as work gets completed, you could pay for that portion of the work that's completed. That's fine. And you could actually structure the contract or payments in the home improvement contract. Now, some of you may be dealing with homeowners insurance. So if you have a claim with your homeowners insurance, keep in mind that most likely any proceeds from that will be paid to the mortgage company. And that's designed for several reasons, but ultimately you did sign a deed of trust stating that in the event of a situation like this one, the mortgage company will be named as the lost payee. So they'll be receiving the proceeds from the insurance. But keep in mind, this is an amount equal to a rebuild value, right? Not necessarily to the value of your property. Also, just before, you hand over or sign off on the final inspection, or what we call when you sign the completion certificate, make sure that all the work is complete to your satisfaction. Again, there's going to be levels of standards, right? So the building codes is going to require work to be completed up to a certain standard. Now, if your expectation is above that, that's not necessarily required, but just make sure that it does meet the building codes. You could also try to ensure that they're paying their workers. If not, there might be a situation where there's a mechanics liens for a worker that doesn't get paid or a subcontractor that doesn't get paid. And that also includes building material suppliers. And then it's also passing the final inspections. So if you have a complete rebuild, the Public Works, if it's through the LA County, they're going to issue a certificate of occupancy letting you move into your newly built home. So those are the things that you want to keep in mind. So how to protect yourself. So always you want to vet the contractor. So the best place to start is the cslb.ca.gov. All that information is available online. So you could check by license number, you could check by the contractor's name or the business name. Also, some contractors may use home improvement salespeople. So you could also check the registration for that salesperson because they have to be registered on CSLB. And also you can reach out to our department. We have counselors here that could do that or help you vet that information as well. And you could do that through our 800 number, or you could go to our website and submit a request through or an inquiry through our Ask a Question feature. Thank you.
Thank you, Clemente. And now we'll transition to the question and answer portion of our evening. The following questions were submitted ahead of tonight's community meeting, and we'll answer as many of them as we can in the allotted time. You can also submit questions in real time using the chat or comment functions on your screen. As a reminder, you can find answers to frequently asked questions on recovery.lacounty.gov/Altadena. And our first question is for Captain Williams. Captain Williams, can you tell us what the current status of residents that are still listed as missing is?
Yes, hi, Captain Williams here. So before I give an update, I just want to give a brief background on the missing persons and how it's conducted. For this incident, just like with all missing persons, the initial report is taken at what we call the station level, where a deputy or detective will take the initial missing persons report. And then that report is then transferred to our homicide bureau, who completes the investigation. That's how it was for Altadena and for Palisades area, and that's how all the missing persons normally are conducted. For this, for Altadena, there were 43 missing persons reported. And of those 43 missing persons, they still remain 10 active missing persons reports. So a majority of those were either located or identified. And of the 10 that are still active, there still are some remains that have not been confirmed by the medical examiner. So that active number is expected to go down, but we do remain at 10 active missing persons. However, we are still finding missing persons that are on the list in different areas. The latest was February 19th, about 2 weeks ago. Someone was found alive in a different area. And we are still taking missing persons reports. If the public deems someone or is worried about someone and thinks that they're missing, they can just come up to the station or call us, and we'll definitely take that missing persons report. And that's the latest update I have.
Thank you for that update, Captain Williams. My next question is for Colonel Avichal. My lot was cleared, but there are large trenches where support walls were. Are the lots going to be left smooth and build ready? Can I ask for someone to come back and fill in the trenches?
Yes, so that's a really good question. And so generally, in terms of coming back in and filling in the trenches with external material, that does not qualify for what we're authorized to do under our FEMA mission assignment. Now, what we do is we do generally try and smooth it out, just using the backhoe that's on site. And if there is a hole greater than 5 feet or deeper, which would pose a safety risk, we try and smooth that out as well. And if we still can't, if there is still a large hole, then we may even fence that off again for safety reasons. but we are not allowed to bring in external fill and backfill sites. Thank you.
Thank you. And another question for you. How can I formally request that my garage be included in the debris removal process, even if it appears as undamaged from the outside? What steps do I need to take to make sure this is addressed?
Yes, so this would go back to its eligibility. So my recommendation, and without having seen the actual garage itself, I think you would put it in your right of entry form if it's not already in there, but it definitely discuss it when you have your 3 to 5 day call with the contractor. Talk about the garage, talk about the damage that you think was caused by the heat. And then when you do the 360 walkthrough on the day of the debris removal, then there'll be an eligibility determination made then. But right now, just without the specifics, I won't be able to speak to that issue specifically. Thank you.
Thank you. And can you remind us how pools and septic tanks are being handled in phase 2?
Yeah, so pools are not eligible to be removed unless they are within the ash footprint. So most of the pools that we have seen have fallen outside of the ash footprint, so we have not removed them. And then septic tanks, again, within the ash footprint, but generally speaking, we have not removed septic tanks because usually they're too deep. We only go about 6 inches deep when it comes to the soil. Again, this should all be discussed during the 360 walkthrough or in the 72-hour call ahead of time for your specific property.
Thank you. And a final question for you, but also for our reps from Public Works that are on. Can you tell us about how both you and Public Works are ensuring that the performance of all subcontractors is following the appropriate guidelines and safety measures?
I'll start, and then my colleagues from Public Works are more than welcome to join in. So first, we have quality assurance personnel on site that are they're wearing the Army Corps logo castle, right? So you can probably see it in my background. It's a red and white castle. They usually wear it on their safety helmets as well as on their vests. And so they're there, they are on site to observe and to ensure that the contractor is meeting all the contract specifications. If you're on site and you see that it's not taking place, then you more than welcome to go up to that quality assurance representative and let them know exactly what it is that you're seeing. If you are, one question that we've had is related to trucks. So trucks that are not following the prescribed guidelines. So maybe they're speeding, maybe there's something else. So all of our trucks have a GPS tracker. So we are able to check to see their speed limits. But if you do see a violation of a truck, please, you check for the ECC logo. So that's a blue and white logo that'll be on the side of each one of the vehicles. Those are a Corps of Engineer truck, where that's from our contractor. And ideally, if you're able to take a photo or something like that, we could always track down a license plate, and we'll take swift action if it is one of our subcontracted trucks that is doing something that they're not supposed to. Okay, that's all I have on my side.
And I just want to add, in addition to what Sunny just said, is that when the contractor has completed the work, we receive a form from Army Corps saying that work has been done. It includes photographs of the property and what work has been done. We review the forms, but we also do spot checks of the work that's in progress out there. We have assigned project managers in each of the Eaton and the Palisades area, and that's part of their duties, is to make sure that they're coordinating with Sunny's team at the completion of the work to make sure that it's done accordingly.
Thank you, Colonel Avichal and Sid. The next series of questions I have are for Public Works and our reps that are on. What is the next step for those who opted out of the government debris removal program, but were deferred to phase 2 for the EPA portion?
So if you opted out, but your property is deferred to phase 2, those properties that have been deferred are being handled by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to make the property they call make safe, and then to remove those household hazardous materials. So once that happens, then you can apply for the permit through FFLA. But if you also have the option that if you do not want to wait for Army Corps to come in to do the the hazardous material removal, just make sure that you're going through the permitting process and you hired a qualified contractor that can do that remediation work for household hazardous materials before doing the debris removal.
Sid, I want to follow up just a little bit of a clarification there, because I have also the list of the original questions. And here, this particular constituent says that, so they were deferred, opted out and deferred to phase 2. But this person is saying, I need to pull a permit for debris removal. My contractor has all the necessary certification, but the county's permit website and process are unclear. So what's my next step? What guidance can you give that individual?
That individual should, if they have gone through the permit process, because the permit process is through the FFLA, and then it's going to ask you a series of questions with regards to the qualification of your contractor. So if you've done it properly, it should kick you through the system. But let's say for whatever reason, something happens in that process. Please give our debris hotline a call, 844-347-3332. Then we'll work with that individual to make sure that we address their permitting issues or concerns through for the ones that have chosen to opt out.
Thank you, Sid and Helen. And another question for those who have opted out of the debris removal program. On the phase 2 webpage, it says that people who opt out will be expected to finish their debris removal in a timely manner. Can you please define what the timely manner is?
Sure. So for those that are opted out and are doing the debris removal, we would like for them to complete the work by the end of June of 2025, this June. That date could be flexible, but right now we're trying to hold that date to get the debris removal done for those that are opted out.
Thank you. And where can people get assistance with rejected ROEs?
So if you have an ROE and there was something wrong with your ROE, or excuse me, I shouldn't say wrong, there was missing information with your ROE, we're going to call you or send you an email. I'd mentioned earlier that you would receive an email with a title, right of entry request for information, and it's going to be someone with a end of at dpw.lacounty.gov on their email. And we're going to work with you, or you're going to get a call from us if you gave us your number. And we're going to work with you to get that information you need so that we can get your right of entry processed and moved over to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Thank you. And my next question is both for you and for a representative from the California Department of Insurance who is on. And the question is, can I reserve my insurance coverage for debris removal if I want to remove anything that was left on the property after Army Corps completes phase 2, such as damaged driveways or soil that may be contaminated, but is outside of the ash footprint?
Yeah, so I'll start off with that, then I'll turn it over to the insurance folks. The work that we're doing with regards to your insurance is what I tell people is Army Corps is going to come in, they're going to do the work they need to do. We don't get involved with the insurance until everything is done with your project with regards to your insurance. We only come in at the very end. And if there's any portion that is left that you haven't used, if you have debris removal in it to do other debris removal needs, that's, that portion is the one, if it's within the guidelines, we'll work with your insurance company to obtain, but only at the very end. So if you've got other debris removal that you need to get done through your insurance, do that first. We'll come in at the very end.
Yeah. So Sid put it perfectly. So if you have debris removal that is not covered by the or is not eligible to be removed by the Army Corps of Engineers, and you've got other things that you want to use your debris removal portion for, you can go ahead and do that. And then, as Sid said, whatever is remaining left, if anything, of your debris removal coverage, then that payment would go to the county debris removal program. And like you said as well, all that is not done until the end of the rebuild typically. So you don't have to worry about, having that debris removal paid out and not having anything left over for debris removal that wasn't removed, and take care of all that. And all the billing and all the payments will be taken care of after the rebuild is done.
Thank you both. This question is also for Public Works, but there may be a public health component to it. Debris removal companies are now required to have a hazardous waste certificate to access waste removal permits. Can we update these hazmat requirements to open up debris removal to more companies and thereby expedite the debris removal process for everyone? And if you need some additional context, I can provide additional context for that question.
I'm going to let our friends in public health start off with the need for the HAZ requirement.
Yeah, thanks, Sid. I don't know the answer to the question. We may need to come back and respond later offline. I don't know if the hazmat requirements can be changed. It's not something I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you both. Next question. With the recent rains, there's been a lot of mud filled with debris left behind in the streets. Many houses have nails and dried mud, and cars are driving by and carrying dust clouds with them. Is there a plan or someone we can call to request street sweeping or pressure washing of the streets?
I would again recommend that, start and call the debris hotline. And then we can route those calls accordingly to the right department to get the debris, to get all that mud and debris off the street. We have teams that are working to do that and to make sure that that's done properly. So start with the debris hotline and we'll route those that request properly.
Thank you, Sid. Our next question is specific to residents whose homes are still standing. For those of you who are joining now, Helen provided remarks earlier in the meeting that there will be a special second meeting on Monday, March 10th, specifically for structures that are still standing. But I'm going to pose this question to you now and hopefully go into the specifics at the next meeting. My home is still standing. However, my neighbors' homes have been destroyed and some of their debris spilled into my yard/property. First question, can I or should I submit an ROE so that the Army Corps of Engineers can enter my property and remove the debris? Second question, will my insurance company be charged?
So I'll take the first part of that question on there. So in terms of submitting an ROE, the right of entry is specific to damage to structures on your property that are in excess of 120 square feet. So if you had debris coming in from an adjacent property, filling out an ROE would not get that work, would not qualify for the debris removal. In terms of the insurance, I'll turn that over to our friends at insurance.
Say that one more time. Sorry about that. I was responding to a chat question there.
Sure. So the question is for someone whose home is still standing, but their neighbor's home who were destroyed had debris overflow into their yards. And the question is if I submit an ROE, is my insurance company going to be charged?
So, and that's for their home still standing?
Yes.
Well, I think, so the debris removal is only for the homes that have been deemed a total loss, correct? So in that scenario, they would need to file a claim with their yeah, exactly right, with their insurance company for the debris removal if their home was still standing. So they would have to go through their insurance company.
Thank you. And just for a point of clarity, Sid, so should they or should they not complete an ROE if there was no visible structural damage to their home?
Yeah, they should not complete an ROE.
Great, thank you.
To follow up on that, I'm sorry. So what are the options? So what would this individual do then?
So as Rob has indicated, they could file a claim on their insurance for that debris removal. But there wouldn't be an option for them to get that debris removal through the U.S. Army Corps mission.
Okay, thank you. Just because in the original question, it was asking what were the other options? All right, thank you.
Thank you. And then this question is for Public Works and or Director Bodek with Regional Planning. At a previous community meeting, county officials said that there is a possibility that they would hire surveyors to provide surveys and boundary markers for all affected properties. Are there any updates on this effort?
Start with that one, Director Bodek. So after the debris removal, a survey may be required to establish property lines, and that would be the owner's responsibility to hire a surveyor. So at this time, no funding source has been identified to perform private property line surveys, but our crews are out locating and documenting survey control points in the Eaton Fire area. And then these points will be uploaded to our land records information website, so that information is available to assist with the private property surveyors as they're out there, and as they put in their information, there'll be more and more information to make this process easier as we go.
And I will add to that, because this afternoon I was actually in a meeting with representatives from FEMA and OES, specifically talking about eligible funding that the county can access to assist with rebuilding, and the ability to conduct surveys on behalf of the community is a potentially reimbursable opportunity for the county. So while Kira's statement is accurate, we are hopeful that in the very short future, we will have some definitive guidance and basically a line of credit for us to be able to conduct that work. So it is still an open question, but I absolutely agree with Kira's statement that if you need to do it now, then it is going to be at your cost.
Thank you both. And a question on sidewalks, Director Bodek. How can we request sidewalks in Altadena?
Great, I can take that one, Director Bodek. So you can email your community liaison, who is Lee Miller, to express your interest in adding sidewalks in your community. Lee's email is L for Lee, last name Miller, MILLER @pw.lacounty.gov. And while the installation of sidewalks can be costly and may require additional private property to be dedicated for public use, Lee can receive your request and connect you to our transportation team so they can get back to you regarding the specific locations that you're interested in.
Thank you. And the next few questions are specific to septic tanks. So for some, this decision on whether extending sewer services to homes that are on septics could determine how or if they can rebuild. Is there any update on whether the county is going to extend sewer services for homes on septics
Unless that was another conversation I'm not aware of, there are a few areas in Altadena that are on septic. And while we receive inquiries from pockets of Altadena into looking at the feasibility of converting their private septic systems to sewer, we can arrange meetings, especially when we can get some neighbors together to share information on what options are available, and so that everybody has the opportunity to ask questions. So I will read out my email if you have any questions about septic, and I'll get you in touch with the right folks. But it's C as in cat, my last name Barnett, Barnett, at pw.lacounty.gov. And again, we can get together and further discuss options in pockets where there's septic.
Thank you. And this question is for Director Bodek, again, on the topic of septics. Are there going to be any directives to allow non-conforming sewage treatment systems to remain in a like-for-like rebuild?
If the question related to non-conforming septic is related to what used to be called cesspools, those cesspools would need to be redeveloped and converted to a more traditional on-site treatments facility like septic. The goal is to try to expand all sewer services to as many people as possible. That may not reach everyone because we do have some unusual properties that are a little bit more remote and may not benefit from the ability to get a sewer system there. So repeat the question again related to the like-for-like rebuild.
Are there going to be any directives to allow those non-conforming sewage treatment systems to remain in a like-for-like rebuild? So will the sewage systems be allowed to remain?
No, I do not believe so. If it is what we do consider to be a cesspool, I do not believe that those will be allowed to remain. Those are currently under the authority of the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and there is an expectation that those would have to be upgraded if the property was damaged, even if you're building a like-for-like situation.
Thank you. And this question is for both regional planning and public works. Are there going to be any additional funds or grants made available specifically for those in need of doing costly upgrades to their septic tanks that are not covered with insurance?
I'm going to answer first. I'm not aware of any grants specifically for that, but I am certainly happy to take that to our partners at the state and federal level to see if they have grants available that we can then turn around and work with the individuals on. But also I would point to the fact that Public Works is looking at connecting as many folks as possible to a new sewer system that they would expand as part of the rebuilding within the community. And if that were to occur, it is likely that a lot of the folks who are on septic would no longer be required to be on septic.
And I just want to chime in on behalf of the supervisor. So, she is working really hard to try to, draw down as much support as available. Any type of additional funding or help, please continue checking at recovery.lacounty.gov website, a critical resource for you to find out what's available. Things are pretty dynamic, so please continue checking that website. Thank you.
Thank you. And Director Bodek, is there an update on whether fees are going to be waived for permitting fees, and when and how would that go into effect?
That's an excellent question, and that is something that we are addressing currently. All of the 4 major permitting departments, which includes regional planning, public works, fire, and public health, are writing a report that is due to be submitted tomorrow. which identifies the dollar amount of the fees that we expect would need to be waived. No department has the ability to waive those fees themselves. It is only at the direction of the Board of Supervisors that those fees can be waived. Having said that, there are also certain fees that cannot be waived, particularly within the fire department, because they are considered a special district, and there may be some legal issues with them not being able to waive those fees. It is still an open question as to whether or not the Board of Supervisors will be able to waive those fees given other financial situations that the county is incurring right now. I would say, and I have said this publicly before, if fees are waived and you have already submitted an application, you will be reimbursed for those fee waivers once those fee waivers are in place.
Thank you. And we have a question here for our representatives from CAL FIRE. It seems like a lot of aid is tied to damage assessments that appear on the DINS map. Can you share more about how properties are being assessed for damage, and can the maps be updated at this point?
I can take that one. Hello, everybody. Gene Potke with CAL FIRE Office, State Fire Marshals, Defensible Space Program. Damage inspection, the initial damage inspection that was conducted during the emergency incident is completed. However, LA County Fire Department has been, my understanding for the last month, has been taking in requests for potential structures that got missed, or maybe a confusion about how their structure was categorized. So that process, and I'd have to defer to Chief Yanagisawa if it's still going, but that is initially what had happened when both incidents were going on. Is during the emergency incident, the CAL FIRE teams that comprised of other fire departments as well, it just solely wasn't CAL FIRE, were doing that boots on the ground validation through both incidents. Does that help with the question?
Can we also just give a little bit of time to Chief Al Yanagisawa in case he wants to add anything from LA County Fire?
Sure. So we stopped accepting edits to the DINS database on February 27th, and the DINS report was finalized and locked on the 28th.
Thank you both for responding to that question. Moving on to our next question for SoCal Edison. Many have shared that their power bills are much higher than usual for January, despite being displaced and having outages during the past billing cycle. What can you do, or what is being done to address the high power bills when we have barely resided in our homes?
Thank you for that question. My name's Dave Ford. I'm the Government Relations Manager for Southern California Edison. And I just want to first start off by saying our hearts and prayers go out to families and those that have been impacted by this fire. And, you know, as we've been engaged in these discussions, it's good to see other agencies and colleagues, along with Supervisor Barger's office and herself, being vested into rebuild and restoration of Altadena. So at the beginning of this incident, this disaster, we put customer bills on hold starting January 8th. What may have happened and is happening is that some customers are getting bills prior to the fire, the disaster. And what we're seeing is those customers that are receiving those bills are prior to the disaster. We are doing bill forgiveness for customers that have been impacted by the fires, as well as waiving deposit requirements for any restoration for small businesses, expediting move-ins and move-out services, requests for customers who seek to reestablish service, and we're suspending any type of disconnection services associated for non-payment. Customers impacted by the wildfire and windstorm conditions will not be billed for their time that their power has been de-energized. We've set up a disaster hotline, which is 1-800-250-7339. I'll say that again and also put that in the chat. The disaster hotline is 1-800-250-7339.
Thank you. And we have time for one last question, and that is for our representative from the Department of Insurance. Our dwelling limits coverage will likely not cover most of our rebuilds, and we will be needing the extended dwelling coverage some of our policies provide. Given that most everyone is underinsured, can the commissioner insist that insurance companies pay out both coverages now instead of waiting potentially a few years until when or if we are able to rebuild?
So sure, thank you for the question. So, under state law, after a declared state of emergency, like the Altadena and the Pasadena fires and all the fires that occurred, after a declared state of emergency, you do have the ability to combine your main dwelling coverage and your additional dwelling or structured coverage to help with the rebuild process. And yeah, that could significantly help somebody who may have been underinsured for their main dwelling coverage. So that's something that you absolutely can do. Now, in some cases, as part of the rebuild process, if that homeowner had a mortgage, then that payment would be paid out to the mortgage company. And at that point, you'd have to discuss with your mortgage company about disbursement of those funds to start the rebuilding process. But if you feel your insurance company should be paying you those funds immediately and they're withholding those funds unjustly, that's when you really need to start contacting us at the Department of Insurance. So in that case, we can take a look at your insurance policy, make sure the insurance company is paying out as they should, and contact your insurance company on your behalf if we need to get to that point. And you can do so by starting what's called a request for assistance with the Department of Insurance. And our number is 1-800-927-4357.
Thank you, Rob. That concludes all the time we have for questions today. I'll turn it back over to Helen Chavez, Communications Director for Supervisor Barger, for any closing remarks.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's time, both the public that has tuned in and also our subject matter experts who gathered here to answer your questions. And I just want to clarify for next Monday, so that would be March 10th, we're going to have 2 virtual community meetings. We will have this standing 4 p.m. community meeting following this approach and method that we've been applying now for several weeks. And we'll have a second additional meeting in the hour immediately following, so from 5 to 6 p.m. And that community meeting will be specifically dedicated to questions from renters and property owners that have structures that survived the wildfires. So just to clarify, 2 virtual meetings, 4 to 5, and then the special one, 5 to 6 on those particular topics. Again, thank you all for joining us. On behalf of the supervisor, again, she sends her regrets that she wasn't able to make it today as she's traveling back, but she will be here with you all next month. Thank you, and signing off.